This tutorial is about setting up a graph on the Web IEP. We begin our graph for the IEP by clicking on the Graph Setup button at the bottom of the goal page. This brings us to the Graph Setup page itself. The first area that we must populate is the y-axis label. This describes units of measurement. Now, two examples of that might be percent correct or words per minute. In this particular example that I have for you, I've put the label number of sight words. The next item to put in the graph is the minimum score. So in this example, it was 60 sight words. The maximum score on the graph is going to be 200 sight words. We look at a starting date for our graph. You can use either typing it in right into the legend right there, or you can use a particular calendar setup. We go from the starting date to the ending date of the graph, usually 1 year. The next items that we'll be putting into our graph are where we're starting on the goal. This is the baseline measure that we've obtained. In this particular example, is 73 sight words. By the end of the year, or the end of the goal period, we want the student to be able to identify 150 sight words. Again, you would just put your cursor in the area and type in the number that you want. The Web IEP graph also has the ability to have a peer line if you so desire. The next data set that we're putting in is the legend text. We have an option for that this is really the measurement values for the data. In this particular example, again, it's number of sight words. We then start to have areas on the graph setup page that indicate where we would enter the data itself. As you can see, there's a number. In this particular example, we've entered 8 separate data points. The date you indicate you're entering the data is, again, has a calendar function that you can put the date in. And as you see here, it is 73 sight words identified. This is also what we consider the baseline. One of the data sets that you put in, most likely the first data set, it will be the first data set, will need to be designated as baseline, and you would need to check the box under the baseline column. If you get to a point where your instruction needs to change, we can enter a phase line. Again, the checkbox needs to be checked, and then a drop-down menu, as you can see here, occurs as to what you changed instructionally. For this particular case, we're going to change the instructional strategy. Once you've completed that, you hit Save and Graph, and you can see that the Web IEP has created a graph for this particular student. As we go over the elements, This is the baseline that was created. This is the beginning of the goal point, the 73. We created an aim line that goes from 73 to 150. Here's the data points that were entered. The graph will automatically create a trend line in terms of what the data is telling us. In this particular instance, the trend line is flatter than the aim line, which dictates a need for a change in the instructional intervention, and therefore we created a phase change, and it draws a line. At that point, we changed the instructional strategy.